Hello, welcome to Bonneville Automotive. Today, we're going to talk about the internal parts to this small engine. This is a Predator 212 from Harbor Freight. We're going to talk about the various pieces inside it and how they work. So this one's already been disassembled and ready to go. Let's go ahead and talk about the parts that would be there. Let's start with the main part of all of it, and that would be the crankshaft. This crankshaft has what's called journals in them. Right? And in these journals, we have three of them. One, two, three journals. Okay. This one is your flywheel or magneto journal. This is where it creates the spark off of this side. This side is your PTO or power takeoff journal. This one's your crank journal. This is where the piston's attached to via connecting rod. Okay. These are counterweights. This is a helicut gear that attaches to the camshaft. Let's talk about the camshaft. This is the camshaft. Camshaft is 2 to 1. This goes around twice to this once. The camshaft and crankshaft have to be aligned at a certain time or marking. On the crankshaft, it has a mark on this finger, and within this V, the camshaft has a mark, and you will line those up when you build the engine so that you have set proper timing. The camshaft drives the valve train via these lobes. These lobes are measured from this angle, so from here to here, and then from here to here, so that you know the rise of the lobe. You'll have an intake and an exhaust lobe. Those lobes ride on here, which is called a tappet. Tappet lines on here, and as this churns, it pushes up on the tappet. This tappet then goes up and down with the camshaft lobes. This tappet drives the push rod. Push rod sits in this little socket right here, and it sits right there, and this way it pushes the push rod literally up and down for the valve train. Okay? The push rod then pushes the rocker. These are two rockers. This is the exhaust rocker, and that's the intake rocker. The push rod goes through the head and goes into this little cup on the push rod. And as the lifter pushes up on it, it will push the valve spring down, which will then open it. When you look here on the back side, it would open the valves. Camera there. Okay. The valves then letting in air fuel mixture or letting out burnt air fuel mixture. So on this side, this would open up. Carburetor sits right here. Air fuel mixture comes in. This valve opens. Air fuel mixture comes into this chamber. Piston comes back up, compressing it. The spark plug then fires. That explosion then pushes the piston back down. And by the counterweights on the crankshaft, which will be rotating, pushes it back up. And at that time, the exhaust valve then opens, letting out the burnt air fuel mixture. That's the valve train. So we've just learned the most major parts. Now let's look at the other part that has to do all this. And that is the piston. Piston is attached to the connecting rod. Connecting rod is attached to the crankshaft. Okay, we have what's called the end cap. The end cap goes on here. It has the oil dipper built onto it. It literally dips into the oil, and as the piston's going like this, it flings oil up into the crankcase to lubricate the valve train. On the piston itself, it has three rings. It has this lower one, which is called the oil ring. The oil gets flung up into here, then it comes out to those little wavy patterns, then coats the cylinder wall of the block. This is the cylinder wall. The next two rings are compression rings. Okay, and they are to seal the compression. So when the air-fuel mixture is ignited, pushing the piston down, it doesn't just go past, but these seal that. We have two of them, and when you install them, you always make sure that the gap on one of them is opposite to the other gap. Okay, so there's our piston. The last piece that I wanted to show was this one. This is in the Predator motors and most other motors. So this is the oil sensor. It sits at the bottom of the block, right down here, so that if your engine runs out of oil, it will turn the engine off, protecting the internal parts. The oil is its blood. So those are the various internal parts. You have just learned all the basic internal parts of the Predator 212. At this point, you're going to go ahead and move forward and answer the questions. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you on the next lesson.